What's going on, guys? I am Kunal Singh and it's been a while since the last video. I thought I'd be able to keep up with new videos, but when the lockdown eased, I got a bit occupied with work. So this time I won't make any promises, but I will try and come up with at least one video a week. We'll see how that goes. But if you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel because there are more awesome content coming very soon. And now coming to the topic. Sony has just released what might well be the big daddy of all the cameras out there. If we keep the cinema cameras out of the equation for a second. The Alpha 1 is possibly the most advanced camera to date, and it really just came out of nowhere. There were no solid leaks, no teasers, and no promotions whatsoever. And when Sony finally teased that they are gearing up for a product launch, it was anyone's guess what it might actually be. And here it is, the brand new Sony Alpha 1, or simply the A1. It has a brand new 50 megapixel CMOS sensor, which is a bit more than the A7R3's 42 megapixel and a little less than the A7R4's 61 megapixel sensor. Both of which are highly optimized for stills photography, but they can still shoot some very nice videos. Whereas the Sony Alpha 1 is being marketed as the flagship hybrid camera that can shoot professional quality videos, just like the Sony A7S series. The form factor of the Alpha 1 is quite similar to the A9 series of cameras, and I do like the extra control dial on the top. Something that the A7S III doesn't have. One thing that I don't like about the Alpha 1 is that there is no flip out screen like the one on the A7S III. I feel like this is a step back and limits the filmmaking aspect of the camera by a little bit, but it's not a huge deal breaker. It would have been nice to see that extra flexibility with the screen though. For connectivity, you get a USB 3.2 Type-C port, a B-Type micro USB port, a full-size HDMI Type-A port, headphone and earphone connections, and an RJ45 Ethernet port. There is also Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on board. The Sony Alpha 1 is equipped with dual Bionz XR processors, and you get an ISO range from 100 to 32,000. Now, you must be thinking that 32,000 is not a big deal. I mean, the Alpha 7S II and the Alpha 7S III did over 100,000 ISO, but you gotta keep in mind, this is a 50 megapixel camera, and since this is a newer sensor, I do believe that images and videos out of this one will be much cleaner comparatively. And besides, if you're shooting at such insane ISOs, man, I don't know what to say to you. For photography, you get 12-bit raw pictures at 30 frames per second at the full 50 megapixel. Now this is really great when you're shooting sports or sometimes even wildlife. But if you need to capture 14-bit raw files, you're limited to shooting at 20 frames per second, which is still incredible and enough to capture that split second of action. And to complement that fast burst speed, you also get crazy shutter speeds of 1/32,000th of a second. Yes, 1/32,000. One thing I learned about the 30 FPS shooting mode is that apparently only the G Master lenses from Sony have the ability to capture 30 frames a second. On all the other lenses, you are limited to 20 FPS shooting. And talking about speed, you have dual card slots, both of which can take either CF Express Type A cards or the good old SD cards. Let me know down in the comments below if you guys would like a video about all the different kinds of memory cards and which one would be better for your camera. Sony also says that they have improved the electronic shutter on the Alpha 1 so you don't get any flickering in your photos. Now, I have never experienced flickering in my photos because I don't shoot that many photos. I'm a filmmaker, for the most part. But if you have ever experienced flicker in your pictures because of some weird indoor lighting, you should be good with the Alpha 1. For photographers who use flashes a lot, you now get flash syncs up to 1/400th of a second. And while I may not be a hardcore photographer, I do know that most of the cameras out there max out at 1/250th of a second or 1/320th of a second. Even the Sony A9 II maxes out at 1/250th of a second. So that's something which I think will appeal to professional photographers a lot. And talking about photography, let's talk about that EVF. It's a 9.44 million dot EVF that has a refresh rate of 240 frames per second, and also there is no blackout when you're shooting even at 30 frames per second. Coming to the autofocus performance of the Alpha 1. Sony says it can do 120 autofocus and auto exposure calculations every second. And the autofocus is twice as fast than the A9 II, which is kind of a big deal because the Alpha 1 has twice the megapixels than the A9 II. You get 759 phase detect autofocus points and 425 contrast based autofocus points, which enable the camera to track subject and eye autofocus in real time, including birds now. So the next time you're out shooting birds with your Alpha 1, you can rest assured that the bird will stay in focus. And now let's talk about the video specs of the Alpha 1, which is the only reason that I am even interested in this camera. You can shoot 8K full frame videos in 24, 25 and 30 frames per second in 10-bit in 420. Now that's impressive. Although the chroma subsampling is 420, it's the 10-bit part that's more important. And that makes the Alpha 1 a true 10-bit camera, because you can shoot 10-bit videos in any frame rate and resolution. But if you're running low on storage, you can also choose 8-bit 420 videos. The 8K footage you shoot on the Alpha 1 is oversampled 8.6K footage with no pixel binning, and on top of that you get full autofocus capabilities. Now where does it differ from the Canon R5? Because I know there will be a lot of comparisons between the two. The difference is that the Alpha 1 will shoot 8K videos in XAVC-HS mode and not in All-I or RAW format. The files coming out of the Alpha 1 will be much more compressed and manageable than the ones coming out from the Canon R5. Now there is a record limit of 30 minutes on the Alpha 1 in 8K mode, but I think it's more of an overheat limit than record limit. The Canon R5 raised a lot of eyebrows with its overheating issues, but I don't think the Alpha 1 will face those same issues, because it's not technically working as much as the Canon R5. Now, in addition to 8K, the Alpha 1 can shoot in all the modes and frame rates as the A7S III. You get the same 120 FPS in 4K with autofocus functionalities, and again in 10-bit 422. And if you need slow motion, you can switch to Full HD where you get 240 frames per second. If you want, you can go ahead and check out the video I made for Sony A7S III where I explain all the different modes, resolutions and frame rates that the camera shoots in. I'll link it in the cards and the description below. And now, the final piece of info. The price. The Alpha 1 is priced at $6,500, and that's not cheap by any means. But it all depends on what you actually need this camera for. It's no doubt the most advanced hybrid mirrorless camera out there. It gives you amazing features and functionality for both photos and videos. If you're someone who shoots a lot of sports or other fast-paced activities, this might be the perfect companion for you. Or if you're someone who shoots a lot of photos and videos, then this might be the camera for you. But if you're someone like me, who mainly shoots videos, this is a hard sell. The A7S III, which is a video camera at its core, is almost half of what the Alpha 1 costs. The only thing that you miss out on the A7S III is the ability to shoot 8K video. But is that really necessary? I mean, sure, you get some flexibility to reframe your shots in post. But if you plan ahead, you wouldn't need to reframe your shots in post. All I'm saying is, 8K isn't something that's absolutely necessary for filmmaking. An added bonus, yes, but not the holy grail. So this is it for this video. If you liked it or found it useful, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. Till next one, take care, be kind.